Good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation about code GPing. What the heck is that? Jalal, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. So this is cool. We're going to be talking about multifamily, institutional capital, institutional investing, code GPing, GP economics, all these cool keywords that you were sharing with me. But let's start with who are you?
Mm, wow. That's a that's a loaded question. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a loaded question. It's an easy question. I'm a guy who loves being in, loves what he does on a day-to-day basis, man. I'd like to think that I'm accessible and I find joy in the day-to-day life and in the simple things. I'm a, devoted friend, devoted, family guy, devoted father. Um, that's who I think of myself first and foremost. What people think of who I am is, I guess, someone who is have been in the industry for many years, entrenched in multifamily investing and commercial real estate investing. Have had a pretty big background in finance and investments in general, and I am a thrill seeker. I'm a deal junkie. Um, but the thrill seeking is not interchangeable with deals because I keep my thrill seeking to my mountain biking, not to my deals.
Mm.
Uh, Deals, I need to make sure I cross my T's and dot my I's, and actually a lot more conservative in my deals than I am in my mountain biking. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Super
but
cool.
yeah, all of these are who I am as a person.
Yeah, you get your excitement fix from the mountain bike, and then you come back into the deal with your conservative focus, and because you're working with you work with some pretty big groups, and you've done quite a big number in terms of deals you've done. So, kind of give us a an overview of some of the milestones you've achieved in your business career.
We have, and I thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've had the fortune of working with family. I've my previous company, Mac Venture Partners, still is around. My brother is the CEO and founder of that company. We are partnered with that company that was very active in the multifamily space between 2010, 2011, and about 2020. We transacted north of 6,000 doors in total during that time. That's not what we have right now in our portfolio, but we had a lot of fun. We it was a hell of a time in the industry. It was prime time. It was we went through a couple of different cycles. Excuse me, I don't know what happened. And and in 2020 we realized that the portfolio we would be better served as net sellers on that portfolio than if we were to continue. We still buy every now and then. We still look at assets to buy. My brother still looks at asset to buy on in a separate company. We just decided to kind of bifurcate the business and launch a couple of different pursuits at that time. Peak 15 was one of those. Peak 15 is we wanted to do um, wanted to still do some deals, but but not be the main GP on the ground. We wanted to have other sponsors who are running the deals for us, and we would come in and co-GP with them. And then the majority of what we do at Peak 15 is raise institutional capital, equity capital for other sponsors' deals across the nation, and not just on multifamily. Because I'm such a deal junkie, I wanted to open it up to other asset types. So we will source equity capital for multifamily, for industrial, commercial office space, hotel conversions, student housing, pretty much anything that is fundable from an equity source that we have, we can pursue as long as the money's there, as long as the return profile is there, as long as the sponsor is has their head on straight and they have a good business plan thought out.
Yeah. Why peak 15? What's the meaning behind the name?
Peak 15 is the topographical name to Mount Everest before it was called Mount Everest. It was Mount Everest got named in 1865, but before 1865, it was simply known as Peak 15 from surveyors, or what they used to be called computers at the time. Again, computers were not machines; they were actual people back then. So when computers discovered Mount Everest, they called it Peak 15 because they didn't have any name to it.
Yeah. And so how did you choose that name? Why the symbolism? Why was that important to you?
I'm a huge fan of mountaineering and adventure, outside adventures in general, and sort of that sort of gut and grit of adventuring and mountaineering and reaching summits and reaching goals, and that just seems very fitting. It's kind of played a big role in my life, and I have not climbed it. For those who may wonder, I have not been to Mount Everest. It's on the bucket list of going to at least to the base camp. But it just embodies everything. If you have a chance to read anything about mountaineerings and mountaineers and those guys who have done the climb, it embodies a lot of my value of fortitude and grit and moving forward and sort of continue the climb no matter what the conditions are. So that just resonates with me.
Super cool. What kind of bike setup do you typically ride with? You said you're an avid mountain biker. What's your brand of choice?
I have an SUV bike that I'm getting ready to upgrade now. It's actually an REI co-op bike that's with suspension, and it's a beast. It's again, it rides more like an SUV than it does of my my girlfriend has a mountain bike that is Santa Cruz, and
Yeah.
her Santa Cruz is actually I get jealous every now and then because she gets so fast on that, even on trails that are pretty rugged. I, however, will go over a lot more rock gardens than she can on her Santa Cruz, because my bike will go over rock gardens like they're nothing.
Yeah. So we're here in Ocala, Central Florida. Just south of us, there's a place called Santos Bike Trails. If you ever make your way out, come visit. I'll ride those trails with you, man. It's gorgeous. It used to be an old lime rock quarry, so they have some really nice drops, nice woods, beautiful. Next time, if you love mountain biking, you should come check it out with me.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You're on, man. I'd love to. Hey, I can never turn down. I'll take that invitation any day.
Yeah, so I have three kids, 9, 5, and 2, and my 5-year-old and my 9-year-old, they'll go on there's a pump track to
Oh yeah.
so he has this little bike that has no pedals on it, but you just use your feet, and he's pumping, and it's fun, man. We'll have a blast. Come visit us.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome. So he has like a little BMX bike kind of
yeah,
thing.
well, it's a trainer bike, so it's like before they have the ability to like pedal and get their balance on their own. It's a balance bike. It teaches them the
Nice.
fundamentals of the balance and such. But he goes on the pump, and he'll go up and down the little hills. He's crushing it, man. He's a cute kid.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
It's funny because he has this big head, and then he has this big helmet, and it looks like a little lollipop going over these hills. It's perfect.
So cute. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So back to deals. As you're doing this, you guys have done a tremendous amount of deals, raising capital and such. Why, when when you guys are focused on standing up peak and running this, why did you choose to go after institutional, right? Because some people are
Mhm.
more retail investors, some are different types of investors. Why did you choose institutional, and what kind of impact have you had in that field?
Well, we have retail investors. It's just our legal charters allows us to only work with institutional investors and only bring one check to the table to the most extent. Otherwise, we would have to become a broker dealer and raise money via a broker dealer route, or us to become a broker dealer. And I did not want to do that. I did not want to go that route and become a broker dealer. So we really kind of limited our focus and our scope to institutional investors to be able to do that effectively. And to be honest with you, I'll bring my retail investors to deals that I'm involved in myself as a co-GP.
Mhm.
Once I get into a deal as part of the GP group, then I am more than happy to bring my individual investors to it. I just can't do that when I source equity for other people. When I source equity for other people, It's a lot more effective for us to bring one check to the table, and it's effective for them as well, for the sponsor, because it allows them the ability to just say, there's one partner back at the table for them, whether it's an LP partner, a limited partner, or a JV partner that would come in on the GP side of the equation. It's just a lot easier for them to be able to predict that, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, with one check to the table and one company to be able to do this with.
Copy. How did you crack into that field, right? So that's a very complex, very sophisticated group of investors. How did you get involved in that? How did you get your start?
Yeah, so my background is in that field. I got started in the industry by being on the equity desk at Morgan Stanley back in the day, and sort of I broke my teeth in the investment world with big shops like Morgan Stanley and Royal Bank of Canada Capital Markets Group. So I did my rounds on that side of the equation. And when my former partners and I had another company in Boston that I launched back in 04, 05 called Boston Venture Partners. And when my partners and I were working at Morgan Stanley, we had a couple of complicated deals that involved bonds, that we had to raise bonds for for really huge development, like $1 billion plus development in Miami. And at the end of that experience, after a couple of years, we decided that we would like to open our own shop and do structured finance for these large scale mixed use development, essentially acting as bankers for these complex, large mixed use deals on the Eastern Seaboard for the most part, because a lot of our deals were in cities like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Miami. And we did that effectively for 4 or 5 years between 04, 05 and 2009. And then we got handed the biggest lesson of our life, and we pretty much lost our entire business overnight, and we had to close shop and get day jobs.
Yep. Yeah. And see, that happened to me starting in '06 because I was speculating on spec homes.
Mm-hmm.
And my group
Mm-hmm.
and I, we built $8 million worth of spec homes in 2006.
That's a lot in 2006.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a lot because '07, it started hitting us in '06. '07, I had to go get a real job. I got a job in the government, doing as a firefighter medic. But man, that really hurt. Let me ask you this question. You've seen some ups and downs of industries and because you've been in the game for a little bit. What do you think is the future of real estate now? Because you're looking at, you say you do, commercial stuff, institutional, multifamily, student housing. Where do you think the market's at now with all the stuff going on in the world?
In a period of very much needed change that has been coming for a while. I mean, people in our industry have been talking about, when is this ending? When are we in the ninth inning? Are we in the 10th inning? I'm like, dude, we're no longer playing any sports at this point. We're beyond sports analogy. We are in a whole different realm of, a new cycle, as it may, in the industry. I think it's a needed cycle. I think it's a correction cycle that has been needed for many, many years, for the past 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, it got here about 3 years. I don't want to say 3 years too late, because the past 3 years been, the last 3 years, people made tremendous amount of money. And with that tremendous amount of money came a great deal of hubris about deals and about doing deals and about expectations of what you make out of deals. And that hubris, unfortunately, is probably going to lead to some very bad decision making, and have led to some very bad decision making. But that happens in every market cycle. You're going to have some bad decision makers that are going to pay the price. And I think, fortunately for the rest of the world, I think that people that will be paying the price for bad decision making is going to be limited to only a certain amount of people, and it's not going to be pervasive across the population or across the economy, because the economy in general actually is doing pretty well. Consumers are doing okay, other than like revolving consumer debt. Revolving consumer debt is pretty high, such as credit cards. But other than revolving consumer debt, money is actually plentiful on the sidelines. There's a lot of liquidity in the market, whether it's from institutional liquidity or retail investor liquidity. There's a lot of liquidity in the sidelines, which did not happen. That was not the case back in 2008. In 2008, 2009, 2007, there was not a whole lot of liquidity. There was a whole lot of leverage. In fact, there's a whole lot of over leverage and no liquidity. So that was the kind of the double-edged sword in 2007, 2008 that led to such a disastrous time. So I don't think we have that right now. I don't think we have plenty of liquidity. We have a lot of awareness about debt and leverage. So I think we're definitely in a change, but not the kind of change that's going to lead to any disasters, at least for the greater economy.
Okay. So right now, you guys are co-GPing deals, right? You step into a co-GP role, and then you go to your institutional relationships, and you get them to see different deals and write big checks. What's a typical check size that you and your group have, brought to the table for a co-GP deal?
It's a big range, but our sweet spot usually happens to be between, I'd say, 3 million and 15 million. That's typical of the majority of the deal. More than 50-60% of the deal fall under that range of 3 to 15 million. But of course, we've sourced deals that are in the 30-40 million range of equity. We're even working on a couple of deals now that are for funds where we're sourcing upward of 50-60 million dollars. So there's no really cap on how much money we can bring to the table. And on the low end of the table, I mean, if we're sourcing from our institutional sources, it has to be in the minimum of 3 or 4 million. But if we're doing it from our own, if I'm co-GPing, and when I say we, I mean me, when I'm co-GPing on a deal myself and signing on the dotted line, I can do a deal as little as 1 or 2 million and kind of bring my own investors to it. I'm talking about equity, not deal size, equity size.
Okay, got it. All right, so let's just say we meet at a coffee shop or something like that, and we get to know each other a little bit. And I'm like, man, I really want to get into cap raising. I really want to work with institutional, investors, very sophisticated investors. I cut my teeth in maybe other type of investment groups, private equity or accredited investors or whatever, right? Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I want to go institutional. Will you mentor me? Will you teach me? Like, what's baby step number one? You say yes, and you're like, all right, Josh, here's the first lesson to get into institutional capital. What's that look like?
The first step is not say more than not pretend to know what you don't know. Always, if you don't know something, don't pretend that you know it. Just don't, because it's not going to end well for you. And there are a lot of guys out there who will ferret that stuff in a heartbeat. And if you start sticking your foot in your mouth and pretending you know something you don't know anything about, just don't. So, be humble, know that you have a lot of learning ahead of you, and it starts at the relationship level. Everything starts at the relationship level. We are driven by the relationship we build on a day-to-day basis, and the relationship we harness and continue to have and hold and hold dear for future purposes. That's what really moves things forward. At the end of the day, I mean, if I know how to spreadsheet something better than you, or how to spreadsheet something better than me, or have you had a background in investment banking more than me, or whatever? That's that might move the needle marginally. What ends up moving the needle is your ability to relationship build. And your ability to learn, and your ability to stay humble and keep learning and be coachable.
Got it. So keep your mouth shut. don't talk about stuff you don't know. Humble, and it's all about relationship building. Now, isn't that interesting that as we're talking about like deal making and big deals, right? Like 15 million, like these are decent sized deals, right? We didn't talk about like being able to look at cap rate, being able to do cost analysis. You said that essentially the three most important skill sets are these things.
Oh, well, I mean, listen, these are most important, but that doesn't mean you can't do spreadsheeting of a deal. You can't look at you can't underwrite a deal or anything like. I mean, if you can't underwrite a deal, if you can't look at numbers, if you can't look at the spreadsheet and make a discerning decision whether that deals look good or doesn't look good, if you don't know certain numbers, that's elementary. You're going to have to teach yourself that. That's not. These are what I mean is these are not the skills that move the needle. These are almost as important as the skills as like, when you ask me like, well, how do I get into college? And this is like me saying, well, you got to know how to read. Well, I mean, that's a given. You have to know how to read to get into college.
Yeah.
That's not how people get into college. I wouldn't say like, well, what's the best way to get into college? I'm not going to tell you, well, you got to know how to read. You would assume that you know how to read to get into college. Same thing with here. You would assume that you should know the inner working of spreadsheets or numbers. You'd have to know, and that goes back to learning and teaching. If you don't know these things, learn them, and learn them well, and spend some time, read books, take courses, educate yourself. It's not just about necessarily a college degree or a fancy master's degree or anything like that. You can do a lot of that stuff right now without anything, just either online or, take courses online, to go be mentored by somebody. But you have to know these things. These are the basics that you have to know. The things I told you earlier about what you should have, the skills, the relationship building, these are these sort of nebulous skills that you can't teach. You have to have some of those skills somewhat built inside of you. I can teach you numbers. I can teach you, I can teach you how to spreadsheet something. I can teach you how to, but you got to be coachable. You got to be, you got to be able to stay humble. You got to be able to have that fire inside of you to keep going after it day after day. And I hate to say it, you got to be a nice guy. You got to, at the end of the day, people got to look at you and say, you know what, I like dealing with Josh. Like I'll pick up the phone. Josh is just a good guy. I like having a conversation with him. If somebody thinks that, God, Josh, that asshole's calling again, they're not going to pick up your call.
Have you been talking to my wife? No, just listen. I agree. Well, I think people do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? And I agree with you that there's these skill sets of relationship building and humility, right? Like those things are virtues. These are characteristics that are like surrounds around the person. I'm not the best on numbers, but I have a partner that does it, or I have teams that, that could help with those kind of things. But being able to look at someone and build trust, I think is super cool. So let's just say you and I are going to go tackle some capital. All right. We're going to go make the ask. So I'm coming along. You're mentoring me, and we're going to go make make some ask. What are some typical ways into getting into new groups of institutional investors, like, that you're going to deploy me through to go find some money?
Well, I mean, look, they don't, it's the golden rule for any relationship building, or, I hate to say selling, because I hate the word selling myself. I have an aversion to the word selling or being sold on something, but really selling at the end of the day is about finding out what's important for that other guy. It's not about you. It's about, because those are institutional guys. They don't need you, unless they do need you, unless you convince them that they do need you for something. If you're bringing them relationships that they don't have, if you're bringing them people that they don't know, if you're bringing them avenues of ways to access the market that they don't have currently, and you're going about it in a way where you are still, you can provide them more, as much value as their money, then you have an entry into a lot of those guys. It's you can't go about it of like, well, I have a database and I'll blast it out and get you somebody to the table. I mean, where's the value there? Like, what you have you can have a bot do that for you these days and send out a crap load of emails and see if something hits. I mean, that's not business development. That's just bot doing bot things for you, So, I mean, you have to show your value, however the value that you think you could bring to the table. If you're somebody who has developed a an amazing meetup group in a certain city like Phoenix or Denver or Charlotte or whatever, and you have like, 10,000 followings on that meetup group or something like that. That's value right there. That's it's something that, hey, like, I am the guy to see when it comes to doing deals in the Phoenix area, or I'm the guy to see who comes to doing deals in Tampa. I know the market really well. And I have access to a lot of the sponsors and a lot of the deals. Let me see if I can bring you the right deal where you can place your money at. I mean, that's one way to go about it. You just have to show what value. You have to understand your value. And that's probably first and foremost, is you have to understand your value and be convinced of your value, and don't sell yourself short.
Mm. Be convinced of your value. Explain what you mean by that. Be convinced of your value.
Well, because we sometimes don't really know what our value is in the marketplace when we go out there. A
Yeah.
lot of times we either undercut our value or we overshoot our value. We think that we're sometimes the cat's meow and we're not. Or the opposite of that. We think that we just like, oh, why would anybody listen to me when you have a ton of value that you can bring to the table?
Yeah.
So you have to have a balance of that. You have to understand what your value is and what you can bring to that relationship.
Yeah. It's a humble assessment of where you're at, right? It's, hey, don't think better than or don't think worse. Just like, hey, this is my buddy Tim Kachuriak calls it a humble swag. I'm really good at this, but I'm gonna stay humble right in my zone.
Yeah,
Uh,
just be pragmatic is I would say better. I mean, you don't necessarily have to stay humble. I mean, it's okay to be flashy. I don't, I don't have anything against flashy. It's okay to be flashy. It's okay to be confident, and that's great. That's a good quality, to be confident and to be energetic and say, like, look, we're gonna do this, that, but don't think that you can do something that you have not proven yet to yourself that you can do, and try to sell that other person on things you haven't even tried yet. Like, I mean, you can, but as long as you have some way within you to know that you're gonna wait, you're like, okay, I can plan it out in my head, and I know what to do, and I know the steps that we can do. I may have not have done it before. It's okay to do something you haven't done before, and in fact, you should do things that you haven't done before all the time. You should always get yourself out of your comfort zone and do things that you haven't done before, as long as you have a plan, not just hope things will materialize out of thin air for you.
right, right. Now you said 2009 you got your butt handed to you, right? And you had to do a reset, go get a real job. Now, when a deal maker takes a big reset in their life, for me, I've been bankrupt. I've been on food stamps. I've been in venture capital, private equity, built some cool stuff, but also lost it. And getting back up after getting knocked down, because be convinced of your value. Sometimes after getting your ass whooped, it's very difficult to know your value, and you lose confidence. How did you get back in the game? Because you went from that to employee, and now you're raising institutional capital. What did that look like for you?
um I don't I to me I didn't have a choice but keep moving forward, and just to I knew that I will get back up to being, an entrepreneur and at the helm of something, and driving something that I like and love. And I knew it. Even back then, so it's something that I knew inside, that there was no other choice. Like, I don't really, any job I had, I knew it was somewhat temporary, and that's how I approach it. It's like, yeah, it pays the bills, and that's fine. A lot of times it's fine to take something that pays the bills. You got to pay your bills. You got to take care of your stuff. I mean, back then I had a newborn son, and it was not an option for me to just stop and think, well, screw it, I don't know. I'm just going to sit back and collect unemployment, and just and I'll figure out something just to get by, just to pay the bills. I don't the concept of just getting by has never been something that I was ever sold on, or was ever in my mind.
Yeah. So let's just say we're working on a big deal, 15 million bucks, and all the details are are set. Everything's been agreed to by multiple parties by the investor group, and all we have to do is get it signed. But we get to choose like the environment we want to sign it in. What's your favorite place to do a deal?
Um,
It could be anywhere, doing anything.
Favorite place to do a deal? Or what you mean, like
Yeah,
geographically, or
yeah.
like
We're
what?
just gonna connect with the investor. Hey, let's meet up here. Let's sign it out. And you're like, hey, why don't we do it? And you fill in the blank.
Hmm. I mean, I actually I love Colorado. I love the Denver area, and I think it's a fantastic area. I love Boulder actually so much that I think it's definitely on the top five
Yeah,
list of places that I might end up relocating after my son goes to high school.
yeah.
So,
So we
it's
might do some mountain biking or skiing or snowboarding out in Colorado or something like that. Sign the deal. See, I was just thinking maybe you'd say base camp on Peak 15 and we would go Mount
no,
Everest.
I'm
Too
more
cold?
pragmatic than that. I mean, that's a cool experience. Yeah, I'll take a cool experience, but that's not like you ask what would be a cool place to sign a deal and like, be able to do business and do and some place where I think it would be a lot of fun. So that would be Colorado probably. Yeah.
Word. That sounds cool, man. So, kind of explain what the stack looks like because you mentioned a few key terms, right? So, GPLP sponsor, right? Kind of explain what that looks like and what you guys look for in potential partners.
I mean, the word GP just means general partner. The word LP means limited partner. JV is just joint venture. I know we tend to kind of throw these terms out ubiquitously, and we forget sometimes that what second nature to us is not second nature to a lot of people out there. Um, General partners are generally the people who are controlling the deals, who are running the deals. General partners, the term is interchangeable with sponsor. Sponsor, general partner, a syndicator. All these three terms are interchangeable to some extent. Syndicator is just the person who's syndicating the deal. A sponsor is the same way, person who's sponsoring the deal. Those two happen to also be general partners in the deal. So it's the same term, it's just being said differently. That's the person who finds the deal, who sources the deal, who gets the deal under control, who does the upfront heavy lifting of whether it's due diligence or the legal steps to kind of lock up the deal and take it to market. So that's who is the general partner, and a lot of times it involves also running the deal after it closes, meaning running point on asset management, running point on property management. Depends what's vertically integrated, what's not. When I say vertically integrated, you might hear that term vertically integrated, meaning that company also does this, and that. So when you're vertically integrated in our industry, in multifamily, for instance, that means you also run your own property management group and you manage the property yourself that you buy. Not a lot of people, not everybody does that. A lot of people would be vertically integrated, but not everybody. And that's not a prerequisite necessarily to growing in this business. Some people like to be vertically integrated. Some people don't. We were vertically integrated at Mac. In fact, we had another sister company that managed our assets for us called Capstone. At Peak 15, I'm not. I don't want to be vertically integrated. I want someone else to run the deal.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of a deal? Like, so you're coming in. I'm bringing you on, to work on a project with me. What's your favorite part of the deal?
Um, Favorite part of the deal is making it work. So not just finding it. Finding it is cool, is one like the first step of the coolness process. The second, the majority of the coolness process is making sure that everybody agrees that this deal is as cool as we thought it was, and then writes the check for it and brings it to the closing table.
Yeah.
So the really I think the most euphoric part of the deal for me is when all parties agree and we know that there's a deal in the making, even if it's not yet signed on the dotted line. That's really the most exciting part of the deal for me. And then obviously the excitement has to continue into the closing, because no deal is done until money's in the bank and
Checks in the hand, right?
checks in hand and it's the signatures are on the dotted line. and I know that firsthand. I mean, you can get excited about all the other stuff, but unless that happens, unless money's in the bank and the paperwork are signed, you ain't got a deal yet.
Yeah. Awesome. 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 If I grabbed your phone and looked through your favorite song, right, that's been playing for the last 10 years, the top song in your playlist, what song would that be?
That would probably be Rage Against the Machine.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
You'll
got it.
probably find more frequency of me playing Rage Against the Machine on my phone than any other band.
Awesome. If you could see any, I love these kind of questions because it kind of gives me an idea as to how you operate and what goes on in your head. If you could see any band, alive or dead, right? If you could have a private live performance from any band in the history of mankind, who would it be?
Probably Rage Against the Machine or Pearl Jam.
Ooh, yeah, I like Pearl Jam. I'm a
Yeah,
big
I
fan of
mean
Pearl Jam.
either or. I mean, I grew up. I'm a kid of the '90s. I grew up on. I mean, I was at the early Lollapaloozas with Alice in Chain and Pearl Jam and Rage Against the Machine all in one venue.
Super
You
cool.
know, it's not an experience that you can duplicate.
Yeah.
So
When you guys are, you mentioned where you guys are. Where are you guys located? Where's headquarters?
Charlotte, North
Okay,
Carolina.
copy. Um, where do you guys do deals? Do you guys only focus on a certain area of the world, or where do you
We
do
we
deals?
we don't. We are geographically agnostic to some extent, as long as it falls into the smile area of the United States, meaning Southeast, Sun Belt, and Midwest. That sort of curved smile of the United States.
Smile part of the United. I've never heard
Yeah,
that before.
yeah.
Awesome. Smile about the Florida. Okay, cool. When you're looking at a deal, or meeting with a group, what are some? Because a lot of times you're working with institutional investors, you're looking for cool deals to co-GP on, cool deals to participate on, and help bring a decent sized check to the table. What are some red flags that you see when working with a sponsor or something, and you look at it and you go, "Oh, red flag! We're pulling our money and walking away."
Well, I think the underwriting is a big thing for us. We are really sort of like underwriting geeks, and we like the numbers. And so there's two people that I have that are sort of going through the numbers before it gets to me. So we have um, we have to, those numbers have to make sense. So if we see a deal that comes through from a sponsor and their underwriting is complete rubbish, then that's the first and biggest red flag. Because I can't take that to anybody. I can't raise money based on that. I will not put our reputation on the line by sending, garbage to somebody else to take a look at, and for them to come back to me and say, John, what in the world? Why did you send this crap to me? So that's the biggest red flag, and probably the one red flag that will have us not take a relationship. I mean, and we've done it before. We've said, this is great. We wish you the best of luck. I think you guys still have some growth to do, and nothing against you, but look us up when you get to a certain point in your maturity, I would say.
Yeah. So a group, if they want to deploy some capital with a group like yours, let's look on the institutional side. What are some ideal partners that would be institutional that would want to leverage with you? What do they look like, and what can you do for them?
Yeah, I mean, the word institutional sometimes is I wouldn't say misunderstood, because sometimes when people think institutional, they think like pensions and endowments, and that's not necessarily the only thing that is encompassing in the institutional world. Our institutional investors are folks that are either sometimes large family offices, mid-sized family offices, private equity companies that have their own dedicated discretionary funds, larger private equity companies that have a lot more money than smaller guys, hedge funds. And then of course it does encompass the your endowments and pensions and all that, for some of the larger checks. um what they look for, again, it's got to be the return profile of the deal has to look right. The geographic preference vary from one group to the other. Some of them don't have a preference, some of them do. The sponsor always makes a difference, always makes a difference, always makes a difference. The sponsor themselves, they don't necessarily have to be, they don't have to have thousands of doors behind them. They don't have to have 10 years experience behind them, but they do have to know what they're talking about. They do have to present themselves as they have a very well thought out business plan and as to what to do with this deal, how to handle it. They want to know that you know your steps. I mean, they want to know that if they were to write a check for you for millions of dollars, that you know what to do from day one to day 60. And if you don't, then that's a red flag for them, and they probably will not invest with you.
Yeah. So you take a look at these things prior to it hitting their table, right? So you're looking at underwriting. Does the deal make sense? What does it look like for the investors? And you're looking through that. And if you see that it's a not a good deal through underwriting, you're not even gonna bring it to the investors because that would tarnish your relationship. Like, why are you bringing us this crap? This doesn't fit our deal criteria. Doesn't even make sense, right?
Right.
On the flip side of that, have groups ever come to you and said, "Hey, we have this deal. We don't know how to properly underwrite this or get it to institutional"? Do you ever work with those kind of groups on fixing the deal or making the
Sure.
deal work? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had groups that have come to us and said that, listen, we're wide open. Take a look at our underwriting. If you think there's room for improvements, let us know where we can do that. If we need to collaborate on something, we can do that as well. If we need to co-GP on something every now and then, again, I mentioned that co-GP opportunity with us. We're actually launching a co-GP fund next month where we'll actually start proactively, hopefully by the fall, start doing some co-GP ourselves with sponsors that come to us with deals that need to either. And when I say co-GP fund, the purpose of our co-GP fund is mainly to provide GP pursuit economic into the deal. So because in every deal, when you source the equity, you as a sponsor have to put in, or as a syndicator or a general partner, as a GP, you have to put in a certain amount of money into the deal yourself, your own skin in the game. That skin in the game is the GP pursuit cost, which would be anything from earnest money deposits to legal fees to, down payment, whatever it might be. That money sometimes is where sort of there's an opportunity to partner up with some folks who may not have it, or they may not want to necessarily milk themselves dry by trying to have it. If they're looking at a $5 million equity check deal, for instance, the GP pursuit on something like that would be anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million. They may not have $500,000, so that's where a fund like ours would come in and write a check for that $500,000, and then still go out and raise the money for them. But at that point, that we're in a partnership. We do come in on the GP side of the equation for that.
Got it. And you call that the GP pursuit cost?
GP pursuit cost, yeah.
All right. So break that down a little bit about what other fees or costs might be in that GP pursuit, and what's a benefit? What's a good fit for a GP co-fund like yours, and where would it not be a good fit?
What the GP pursuit costs are essentially what your cost as a GP, what you're going to put into the deal yourself.
Okay.
So, and that becomes especially more important if you're going to go and raise equity from institutional sources. It is a little bit less important if you're raising equity just from the retail investors, because you can play with that equation a lot more. With institutional investors, they're going to want you to have anywhere between 10 to 15% of your money into the deal. So most institutional investors usually will bring anywhere between 85 to 90% of the money to the table, of the equity stack to the table. So let's speak in more simple terms. If we're talking about let's call it a $35 million deal, 10 million of that is equity, 20 million of that is debt. Out of the 10 million of equity that is required for the deal, you as the general partner, as the sponsor of the deal, will probably have to come up with $1 million yourself at least to go into the deal. And that $1 million could be in a variety of, it could be from deposit, could be from legal fees, could be from fees to lock up the lending. I mean, a ton of things go into that kind of GP pursuit cost that would go into it. It's essentially pursuing the deal and what it would cost you.
Got it.
That's where that delta is where we would come in to kind of fulfill with our co-GP fund.
So for a sponsor group that has a good deal on the hook, and they just need some help getting over the hump to meet the requirements to go after institutional, that's a good bridge, working with a group like yours.
Yeah, I mean, there are other factors, obviously. So, I mean, if they qualify for the loan themselves? Do they need experience? Do they have experience? There are several factors that sponsors have to look for when they're doing a deal. Obviously, the experience of the sponsor is huge. Whether it's for lending purposes or for institutional equity purposes, because institutional equity also want to know what kind of experience that the sponsors have, what their background is, how have they done the deals, what they've handled before, where they came from, that kind of stuff. So the experience of the sponsor is important. Obviously there's a net worth requirement for the lending portion, so somebody has to sign on a deal that have some net worth liquidity requirement on a deal for lending purposes. That may or may not be necessarily a co-GP. That could be them, or they could bring on someone from the outside completely that is not even that's not part of the managing GP entity. That just could be a KP, a key principal. You can bring in a key principal to sign on the net worth of the deal without them having to be necessarily a day-to-day co-GP with you. So all these things should work in concert when you're trying to source money for a deal and when you're trying to source a deal. What I think you asked, what wouldn't work? Is that what you said? What would work and what wouldn't work?
Yeah, what kind of groups would not be interested in a co-GP situation or GP fund?
I mean, a co-GP situation. I mean, if you're a well-established group, if you're a well-financed group, if you are a group that likes to have control, you may not want a co-GP, and that's fine. You just want the money. You don't want a co-GP. I mean, you'll take a co-GP from an institutional source, but you don't want another co-GP
right
like me with you. You'll just you're okay. You got the experience, you got the background, you got the money, you got the SREO schedule, you got the net worth. I mean, if you've checked all these boxes yourself and you really don't really care about having another partner with you, then that wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah. As you're doing this, you guys, focus on industrial, multifamily, student housing. Are there any other niches that you guys are willing to touch or take a look at?
I mean, as long as it's in the commercial real estate space, we'll look at it. For sourcing capital, we'll look at it. For us to co-GP, to partner with the sponsor, it has to be in multifamily. We only do multifamily, whether it's ground up or stabilized assets or whatever. I don't care what it is, but it has to fall in the multifamily space for us to co-GP. We'll source equity for whatever kind of deal it is, as long as it falls in the commercial real estate space, whether it's industrial, office, self-storage. We'll do everything under the rainbow. But we will not partner unless it's we will not partner ourselves unless it's a multifamily deal.
Got it. As you're learning and growing yourself in terms of mindset and personal development, what are you working on anything right now for your own personal growth? Like, are there any resources that you're diving into or learning more about?
I mean, for my own personal growth, I personally have a personal coach. I have a therapist. So I like to always try to keep myself in check and keep growing in all different ways and more nebulous ways than just business. So it's not just personal growth is not just learning numbers and learning how to do a deal. Personal growth involves so many other aspects of our personality. So because everything else you work on within yourself will help you get to hopefully a better next step within yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean more money or more business or any of that. It has nothing to do with it. Personal growth is not equating to personal net worth, and a lot of people sometimes make a mistake of equating those two in the same breath, and they're not.
Yeah. If you had to look back in the last couple of years of your life, what is a milestone that you've achieved in your personal growth, like that you've overcome something or walked through some adversity? What's something that you're proud of that you've accomplished in the last couple of years?
Um, I think probably I've come to understand myself and have a better sense of boundaries. I used to have a little less sense of boundaries, meaning that I used to give people a lot more leeway than they should.
Yeah.
I used to take a lot. I used to say a lot more yeses than I should have. I used to let people give me less value than I'm worth. Um, all of that I've gotten better, much better. I'm certainly not there, and I don't know if I'll ever be there because personal growth is a continuous journey. It's not something that there's no destination in
Yeah.
mind. The destination is when I'm 6 feet under. So there's no, I don't want to. I'm not in a hurry to get to that destination yet. So
Yeah.
personal growth is a continuous journey. It's like it's like a painting that never has never done. You
Yeah.
know, and yeah, for me, sort of understanding my boundaries, understanding my net worth, understanding my value, understanding what works and what doesn't work, understanding how I can communicate those boundaries and to others, and kind of be truthful to myself a lot more. That's kind of been probably the biggest journey for me for the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, super cool. I'm working through the same thing right now is boundaries and focus for me is like where should I put my focus and invest my, energy, resources and such, and then the boundaries of like I'm a I love people, right? I'm a people pleaser. I've
Yeah,
got tons of
yeah,
relationships and you could get easily pulled very quickly into a project or to help someone and to invest in someone and they might not even invest it in themselves. So I'm working through boundaries right this very minute, man. Um,
boundaries is a big one.
it's a
Boundaries is a big
big
one.
one.
Boundaries is a big one, especially for I hate to say it, but especially for people who like to give more than they receive.
Yeah.
Because you end up giving a lot more than you should.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my coach had to walk me through the process of like, uh, I create codependent relationships in the past. And because I give, I give, and I have a need to be needed. So what happens is I create these relationships, so I'm unwinding and I'm learning a lot. But personal growth for deal makers is so vital. I find that I hit a ceiling in my money, in my business success or whatever, wherever my mindset ceiling is, that's where I'll hit. So whatever I'm working on in my personal development, that's the ceiling I'm going to hit with my wallet.
mm,
Um,
interesting. It's interesting that you see it that way. That you
yeah.
kind of hit a ceiling with both those things at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, mine, I had daddy issues, I had mommy issues, I had, trust issues, I had self-doubt, self-worth, all these kind of things that, could come from a myriad of failures. And I had to learn that, being a part of this game that we're in, this entrepreneurial game, that you're going to have a lot more ass whoopings than you're going to have home runs. And it's okay to hit base hits every time. Those are great. Compounding
Yeah,
interest and compounding
yeah,
success. So
yeah.
it's like, yeah, I'm just learning a lot and I'm 40. I thought I would have all my shit together at 40. I'm just learning to really get major traction in my life now and it's
Man,
happening fast.
remember when we were like 23, 24, and we thought 40 was so old.
So old. I was such an arrogant asshole when I was 20 something, man. Unstoppable. Man,
Oh man, if I can go back to my 20-some-year-old self, the kind of things I would whip my ass for.
yeah, let's play a game. You and me are like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We get to jump in a phone book or a phone booth or whatever, and we get to sit across from younger Jalal and Josh, and we could give the 20-year-old self. They have to listen. Yeah, I don't know if I would have, but like, let's just say they have to listen one piece of advice. What's that one piece of advice you're gonna tell your 20-year-old self?
Um, Start investing in yourself early.
Yeah,
You know, that would be the biggest piece of advice. Start investing in yourself, and you know, time is time does have a limit for us humans.
yeah,
It's not unlimited. You know, when we're in our 20s, we don't even sometimes I know for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but I used to think time is unlimited. Like when you're in your 20s, like, yeah, you can do no wrong because life is endless. Well, life is not endless. You know,
yeah,
life does have limits, and you know, you know, if you end up if I knew about commercial real estate back then, or even the inkling of what I would have done in commercial real estate back then, I would have totally shifted the game on myself. That's why I'm constantly impressed with so many young people, and I'm so pleased that there's so many young people in our industry that are coming into our industry now more than ever.
yeah,
Young sponsors, young syndicators who are hungry, who are knowledgeable, who are hungry for knowledge, and they want to get things done, and they want to get into the business, and they understand the value of compound growth, and you know, they understand the value of base hits. You know, it's okay to kind of, you know, take a base hit right now on a small asset. It's okay to start with a duplex or quadplex or 10 unit, you know, apartment, you know, and you don't have to go from 0 to 200 units, you know,
yeah,
overnight.
yeah, yeah. That was my pride as a young guy. Was I got to go for the grand slam? I got to go for the massive home runs, and I missed
Yeah.
a lot of base hits.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Me too. Me too. I mean, back then my head was in the cloud about, like, you know, being a little bit more on Wall Street, and getting things done in that world. And, you know, I was in venture capital at one point or another. So, I
yeah.
mean, you know, that you were concentrating on the grand slams, and that world is all about the grand slams.
It's all about the grand slam.
In fact, I think the whole engine of how they drive that world is they sell the grand slams. So, you
Yeah.
know, if because if it wasn't for the grand slam, nobody would be in that world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, man, such a cool conversation. As a deal maker, and I've interviewed probably close to 1,000 entrepreneurs over the years of doing these kind of shows, and I realized that it all comes back on like invest in yourself. Like, nobody ever says, I wish I would have gone back and invested in Google. Like, yeah, that'd been cool, or Apple. Yeah, you'd have money, but if you don't have wisdom and you get money, dude, you'll blow it. If I would have cashed out my first big deal and been a multimillionaire at age 25, I'd have bought a dirt bike, did a backflip, and broke my neck or
Oh,
something
a hundred
stupid.
percent, 100%. And I did blow money back then. I mean, that's the thing. We did blow money back then. We had. It's not like I didn't have money. We had access to money, but it was useless because I didn't have the knowledge set to know what to do with that money.
Yeah, that the wisdom, right? Like riches with wisdom last generationally. Money without any wisdom, the fool, it disappears. It escapes their hand. Um, book, podcast. What resource is something that you've read recently or listened to that you thought was pretty interesting? You want to share with us?
Oh, I I I have an obsession with books. So my nightstand looks like I can't even see my nightstand because it's got like 20 books on it that I'm trying to read at the same time,
Yeah,
or I pick up a book and I'll read half of it and put it down, read another book and go through half of that and
yeah.
put it down. So I'm reading 2 or 3 different books right now. I'm reading a book by Italio Calvino, and I'm reading another book by, forgot the name of the author, but it's called how to hold on. I'll let you know, how to take over the world. It's a pun. It's one of those things of, different ways to how to be a super villain,
Yeah,
how to be a super villain. Yeah.
super cool. Yeah.
Um, um, I'm rereading an old book called The Diary of an Economic Hitman, that got republished recently, or republished in the past couple of years. Amazing book, fantastic book. Um, I'm rereading another old one of my favorite pieces of literature from Henry Miller called Tropics of Cancer. So yeah, I don't just read nonfiction. I read a lot of fiction and nonfiction.
No kidding. That's cool. Um, as you're building out and you're building out Peak 15, your co-GPing deal, working with some cool groups, like what does how do you know you won? Like what does you and I 20 years in the future, maybe 40 years in the future. I've got a good 40 years left of deal making. So we're sitting on the front porch on a rocking chair. I'm going to be sipping some bourbon or some scotch. I like scotch. What will you be drinking? Iced tea or cocktail? Like what will you have?
Yeah, I'll probably be drinking bourbon or scotch. I'm a brown liquor drinker.
Okay.
So
Cool. So we're
hence
looking.
hence what you from in the background there.
Oh,
So
nice. What you got?
I have Buchanan 18. I have a Macallan, and I have another single malt.
Nice. Well, when you
Casket.
come mountain bike
So
riding, after we're done mountain bike riding, we might crack open one of ours and we'll enjoy that together. But we go forward 40 years and we look back and we're like, we did it. We accomplished it. What is that milestone for you?
um we did it, accomplished it. I think probably the fact that if I look at my family and my son is stable and successful in life, and um, you know, that's a huge accomplishment for me. That would be something that would definitely send pride and joy for me. Whether I'm sitting in, I have a ton of capital myself, or a ton of deals, or a ton of properties, or if the people that I care about the most in my life are happy and healthy and wealthy, that is a huge accomplishment for me. For
Cool.
me, if it, ideally for me, I'll probably have like I don't know, a mountain house somewhere that have access to a lake and have access to good trails. Probably by then I'll probably be too old to mountain bike. I don't know. I might just, might have to content myself with just walking or hiking on trails at that point. Yeah, and then maybe have like another, I don't know, and if since we're going ideal universe here, maybe I'll have another pied a terre somewhere else, like a cool city like Savannah, or
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah, that sounds super cool. All right.
something
So
like that.
let's say your boy's in the neighborhood of 10 years old, right?
14.
Oh, 14. Okay. So let's just say he picks up this podcast and he gains, like, you can share one golden piece of wisdom with him for his future, right? Like, you're like, son, listen up. If there's only one thing you hear on this podcast, I want you to hear this. What's one piece of knowledge, wisdom, advice that you'll pass to your son right now?
Um, Trust in yourself and continue learning all the time. You always be thirsty to learn, and always stay humble.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. Shout out to your boy. And then shout out to one of our friends, Dave. He connected us. Super cool guy. I appreciate the
Yes.
connection there.
Yes, no, I appreciate Dave's connections for sure, and he's a super cool guy. Him and I are actually talking about doing a couple of cool things together as well.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's do this. For people, for deal makers who want to connect with you, what's a good place for them to connect with you and do a deal?
They can find me on obviously email. My email is azar@peak15cap.com, azar@peak15cap.com, or they can go to the website, peak15cap.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on the mountain trails.
Listen to some Rage Against the Machine or some Pearl Jam. He's going to be singing Jeremy riding his bike around. Are there any questions I should have asked you that I completely screwed up and didn't ask you?
No, I think I think you covered it. I think the one thing, that couple of exciting things again we have coming up, that we're launching in the next few months, that will be hopefully ready to market by fall or so, is our co-GP fund. That will be a fantastic instrument for sponsors to be able to if they want to partner with us and do more deals and bigger deals. And we're also launching a mastermind in the fall as well, and that's one thing I'm launching with Dave actually. That will also be launching probably sometimes in the fall time.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, fellow deal makers, as always, reach out to our guests. Say thank you for being on the show. If what they have is of interest to you, connect with them. All their contact information will be in the show notes below, so you can connect directly with them and do a deal. That's the purpose and mission of the show, is to put deals and deal makers together. If you're working on a deal and want to talk about it here on the show, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. Love you.
Thanks,
guys.
Josh.